Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Friday, the 3rd of February. I'm Derek Clark and I'm joined this morning by the Herald and the Glasgow Times senior Rangers writer, Chris Jack. How are we doing, Chris?
Morning, Derek. How's things?
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Good to have
Good
you.
stuff. Good stuff.
Good to have you join us on a Friday morning to talk all things Rangers. Before we do that, folks, just a bit of housekeeping as ever. First of all, you can see the ticker below. We've got a tremendous giveaway at the moment. You can win hospitality tickets to the Rangers Partick Thistle Scottish Cup tie coming up. The Glasgow Derby, no less. All you have to do is sign up to our free newsletter. Head over to rangersreview.co.uk/newsletter to sign up. It's dead easy. It takes 5 seconds, and that'll be you in the draw for those 2 hospitality tickets. And a quick word as well for our podcast sponsor, Seneca Hair Restoration. They are the #1 hair transplant group in Europe, no less. If you're looking to reinvigorate the top of your head, then these are the guys to go to. And I've stuck the links, as usual, in the description box as well if you want to go and check them out. And you can see the little banner on your screen as well if you want to subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's totally free. Over 11,000 of you now supporting the channel, so thank you very much for doing so. Right, Chris, let's get stuck in. Michael Beale undertaking his press conference yesterday. Rangers have altered it slightly, whereby the press conferences will now take place 2 days prior to a match day. You were there for us as ever. Well, first of all, have you enjoyed going along to Michael's pressers? I think that they're different than Giovanni's, aren't they? You get a lot of information out of them, maybe too much information at times.
You can never have too much information when there's websites to fill and there's newspapers to fill and there's things to be talking about. You can never have too much information. As I said to Josh last week, I really enjoyed them. I think they've been great value. I know some people don't see the value in them. Other fans really like watching the videos and then reading the stuff after it. I think they have been really good. I think he's been really open, been really honest. Transfer wise, I thought it was really interesting how he played the whole situation over Whittaker, how he played Raskin, how he played Cantwell. Even just generally, he's happy to talk about his team. He's happy to talk about injuries and go into a bit more detail on where guys are and where they are in terms of timescales. He said last week he played 2 up front at Tynecastle and made no bones about the fact that he was going to go that way. Not quite the same as the time that Pedro gave his entire team before. I think it was Aberdeen they played that day, and Pedro came in and rained off the entire starting 11, which is a bit different. But no, I think overall Beale he's been very good value, and the fact that it's now match day -2 just gives us another day at it, another day in terms of content for the papers and the website. So no, all good so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, the Hearts game in midweek is the final midweek fixture for quite some time now, I think, but before the split at least. So it's going to be 1 game a week from here on in, barring, of course, if there's cup replays. Let's hope there's not when Rangers take on Partick Thistle. Right, from this press conference, Chris, a number of interesting points as ever. Yesterday, I wanted to touch on, well, first of all, a question that's been posed here. I wonder if you've got any update on this. Scott Hammond gets in touch. Morning, Scott. Any news on Raskin's work permit for tomorrow's game? He was asked about this. He says, hopefully that'll come through. I know they've got a backlog, so hopefully a few nagging emails and they'll push that to the front. Obviously, after the transfer window, there's quite a few players coming in, but he's an exciting one to have. And he did add, we've got him forever, not just Saturday. I know there'll be people desperate to watch him, but a little bit like Todd, we've got to respect that we've already got a good team and they've got to come in and earn their way to play in it as well. That's what should happen. Do you think we'll see him at the weekend, Chris?
Only if the paperwork has been done. Word from Rangers yesterday was still waiting on it. Obviously, still waiting on the paperwork being signed and sealed. If it does get done, we hopefully should be able to speak to Nicholas Raskin later on. I think the plan is for Rangers to do a presser later on if all comes through and all's fine. Obviously, until that stage, until everything has been verified, he's not allowed to train. He's not allowed to do any work, obviously. So if it comes through the next couple of hours, hopefully there will be a presser later on, and we can go and speak to Raskin and get his thoughts on his move. If it doesn't come through, it also puts doubt over whether they can play tomorrow. It would then need to come through later on tonight. then allow him to play tomorrow. But as the manager said yesterday, it's a long-term thing. We've had to wait 2-3 weeks over the transfer window from bids going in, and the deal finally getting there before they arrived in Glasgow. So I think an extra couple of days, while it's an inconvenience, it's not a disaster. And you look at the fixtures coming up, certainly the Partick Thistle game next weekend in the cup, that should be the ideal one just to stick him in if he doesn't make the game this weekend.
Yeah, what do you make of the signing and pretty much the January transfer window, Chris? Two high caliber players coming in the form of Todd Cantwell and of course Nicholas Raskin, Charlie McCann heading out the other way. Is Raskin a player that excites you? A player that Rangers have been needing for quite some time?
He's a player that they've certainly been tracking for quite some time. When the Daily newspaper guys got the manager after the broadcast section yesterday, he was saying it was a name that was put to him right at the very start. So when he was talking about coming into the club as manager, Raskin was one of the players that had already been identified as a possible January recruit or summer, depending on how the deal could be put together. He's also a player that Michael has known for a couple of years after playing against us 2-3 seasons ago. So he is someone that he's tracked. He is someone that he's very, very keen to get to the club. And I think when you look at the profile of him, a Belgian under-21 internationalist, he's at a good age, good experience, played a lot of games, very highly rated, was sought after. There's other clubs on the continent that fancied him. I think it could be a wee bit of a coup for Rangers to get him in. They've not spent a lot of money on him, but the type of player that over the next 2-3 seasons should have a lot of improvement in him, and could potentially be the next big sale. I think that was one of the things that Michael had to do with his rebuilding of the squad. He had to put value back into it, like Steven Gerrard did 5 years ago now. They came in 2018. They had to put transfer value in the team. So you had the likes of Oscar Patterson coming through, you had your Aribos, you had your Passes, you had Kamara. The squad now is a bit short on sellable assets to then go and reinvest. Raskin, I think if we see the best of him for 2 seasons, maybe 3, I think that might be all that Rangers get out of him, because if he continues to improve the way that Rangers hope he will, I don't think he'll be here for 5-6 years, unfortunately.
No, but he's certainly the sort of profile of player I think Rangers should be targeting. That's for sure. Lots of interesting comments coming in at the moment. We'll touch on. Well, first of all, I'm not too sure about this. Orange Juice gets in touch. He says, anyone else kind of hoping Derek will be shirtless? I'm not entirely sure that is. People need to see that at this time in the morning or any time, really. Orange Juice, hello. If there is demand, then let me know. However, let's move on to the Rangers news. Chris, one thing well, first of all, I want to get your take on the events at Tynecastle on Wednesday night. For me, Michael Beale has said it himself, I think, but pretty much all in agreement. It was the most complete performance since he came back to the club. How impressed were you with Rangers on Wednesday night at a venue and against a team who are in right good form? They were unbeaten in 10, I believe it was. And they were really confident, the Hearts supporters, heading into that one. But Rangers, for me, were absolutely magnificent. The best performance, I would say, since Leipzig. I know many people are saying that. Domestically, God, I can't remember the last time that they played it as well as that. I know they beat Hearts 4-0 back in October, but for me, the victory on Wednesday night was a better all-round performance. What did you make of it on Wednesday?
I think it's the kind of performance that I felt has been coming the last few weeks. It's the kind of performance that we've all been waiting for to see Rangers produce. Now, the manager speaks about asking the players to release the handbrake. I expected that to happen at some point. Didn't really expect it to happen at Tynecastle on Wednesday night again against the Hearts side. As you say, Derek, we're going really well. Fully fancied our chances of a result. Set up with a really attacking team to go and try and take the game to Rangers. But Rangers just completely dominated from start to finish. It was a really accomplished, professional performance, not a failure in the team. Everyone played their part. And I thought it was a really, really good performance. 3-0 certainly didn't flatter them. If they'd won 5 or 6, now you wouldn't have said that was a bit flattered them either. I know a couple of the VAR calls were touch and go. I think overall the manager had to be pleased. Even post-match, he almost played it down. I think we were expecting him to come in and say, that's the bar being set, that's the standard I want to see. We've got somewhere now. But even then, he was still saying there's more. They can be more clinical. They can be better in the final third. He was pleased they got goals from set pieces, but almost kind of lamented that fact because it showed that they hadn't been as clinical and as effective in open play as he would have liked. So as good as they were, as impressive as it was, I think the fans can take a bit of heart from the fact that the manager's still demanding more. He still knows there's a lot more in this team. And as Raskin gets up to speed, Cantwell gets up to speed, the lots of injured players are coming back as they get a bit more game time under their belts. I think there is a lot more to come from Rangers over the next few weeks. It's just a shame that the gap still remains at 9 points, because if there'd been a slip up and they'd be able to eat into that gap, they're now starting to build the momentum and the kind of form that really would have made it interesting over the last couple of months of the campaign.
Yeah. Is it any coincidence to see the likes of Kamara, who I thought was man of the match on Wednesday, and John Lundstrom putting in easily his best performance of the season? Any coincidence it's the fact that perhaps a certain midfielder was watching on from the stands, Chris?
I don't think so. No, I think coincidence. Nah, I don't think so. I think the manager's spoken for quite some time about competition for places and competition for jerseys in that squad, and I think even just having a man sitting in the stand, you're seeing the benefit of that. People now looking over their shoulder, thinking, this boy's a player. If I'm not at it, I'm not going to be in the team. Michael spoke to the Daily guys again yesterday about how Raskin and Glenn Kamara are very similar, and they're going to have a real tussle for that jersey. I wouldn't be surprised in certain games to see the two of them play together. More often than not, I think it'll either be Raskin or Kamara. The manager was going through like Raskin's style. So don't expect him to be a Rottweiler. He's not going to snap into challenges and throw people up in there. He's a ball player, he's a technical player. He'll close down spaces. He'll nick it in tight areas, but he can pass and he can then make things happen. So I don't think it was a surprise to see Kamara and Lundstrom perform as well as they did, knowing that they've now got a guy in the stand who potentially could come in and take both their jerseys. So I think we're now really seeing the benefit of one, the 2 January transfer deals, but also potentially having Roof back in the next few days, having Cholak back, also having Hadji back as well. Certainly having Ben Davies and Conor Golson back has made a big difference as well. So as frustrating as it was, obviously for Gio, for the fans to watch a team that was really under-equipped for so long, we're now really starting to see the benefits of the squad that is there.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a fantastic Rangers performance, and there is no doubt about it. Every one to a man stood up and was magnificent. However, Alfredo Morelos netted a double on Wednesday, Chris, and we're not talking about the 2 goals that he scored. We're talking about his celebration. Unfortunately, Michael Beale was quizzed on that. Of course, it stems from Neil McCann's comments on BBC Sports Sound when co-commentating on the game. He called him an idiot, of course, to celebrate by celebrating like that when he had to wait on VAR coming in before doing his trademark knee slide before putting his finger to his mouth to shush the Hearts fans who were giving him a bit of jip, it's fair to say, when his goal was ruled out. He was asked about that in his press conference yesterday. He says, I won't agree with that. I think the Hearts supporters were maybe trying to incite Alfredo for the whole 90-plus minutes. If we're going to say that players can't celebrate goals now, we might as well stop the game. There was a long stoppage for that goal, and I think he went and celebrated. He was, 20-plus yards from them. I think a lot is made about these sort of things in Scotland. It's not made down south. I've never known this to be a big thing. When we score our second goal and our first goal, we are 2 yards from their fans. We've got to celebrate the goal. What do you want us to do? Not celebrate and then everyone say he's moody and wants away because he doesn't celebrate? I think Neil is obviously on the radio. He's passionate. He played for both clubs. He's trying to be impartial, and he said what he has said. I think he will regret that more than maybe Alfredo celebrating. What do you make of all this, Chris? For me, it's a bit tiresome. I've got to say, I was a bit taken aback when I heard the comments from Neil McCann. A bit shocking for me. It's fair roiled up the Rangers supports on social media. What do you make of it all in this big hoo-ha talking about a celebration?
It's all a bit of a nonsense, to be honest, isn't it, Derek? It's not exactly Adebayor running the entire length of the pitch to go and celebrate. I think the manager handled it quite well yesterday. Again, he spoke in both the broadcast and the daily section yesterday about it, and just looked a bit nonplussed about the whole thing. Almost like, well, why are we even talking about this? And there's so many positive aspects of the game, positive aspects from Alfredo's performance as well. I thought it was really good, took his goals well. Also, if it hadn't been for a couple of offsides and Alfredo had been a bit more clinical, he would have had a hat-trick and could have had even more on the night. I don't really see the outrage here. It's not as if he was goading the Hearts fans. He didn't run right to them. He celebrated closer than that to them before. And again, as the manager points out, we don't always hear the abuse that's raining down on players throughout the 90 minutes. So it's always situations like this. Players take abuse for 90 minutes, and as soon as they give anything back and it shoots the crowd or a wink or a hand gesture, it's the biggest outcry and it's the biggest thing ever. It's a nonsense. I was surprised at the comments. I saw the actual Twitter outrage, if you like, on it post-match. I was in the press room. I didn't get a chance to actually listen to the clip. When I then got home and listened to the clip, I just found it really, really bizarre. I don't really get what point Neil McCann is trying to make. I think the manager has handled it quite well. It's one of these kind of situations that Scottish football seems to do best, and you can't beat a bit of full outrage.
Yeah, exactly. It's Scottish football in a nutshell, isn't it? And I totally agree with you with regards to fans dishing it out. If you get a wee bit back, then you shouldn't complain. And Rangers on Tour raises an interesting point. It says, no one said anything when Porteous ran the length of the pitch after scoring against Rangers. Granted, he was knackered after that, and it did help us. Yeah, absolutely. I'd have no issue with players doing that, especially if supporters are dishing it out. What have you made of Morelos, Chris? I think he's one of many players that looks reinvigorated under Michael Beale. He's not back to his absolute best, of that there is no doubt, but he is looking sharper. He's leading the line well. He's linking up play. I know he missed a couple of sitters at the weekend against St Johnstone, but he looked good at Tynecastle against Hearts, and he looks in the mood again.
Mm-hmm. His contribution in terms of like pure stats, in terms of goals and assists over the last few weeks is impressive. I think his contribution away from that, in terms of what he's actually bringing to the team, is gradually improving as well. He's not the Morelos of old. He's not Morelos at his best, but I think he has certainly shown signs that he's getting there. Whether that benefits Rangers in the long term or not, in terms of a new contract, time will tell. It might not be, speaking of coincidences, it might not be a coincidence that he's obviously in the market for fresh employment potentially come the summer. Yeah. And he's now maybe thinking, no, this is the time to go and show what I can do about, or go and do again. But I think Rangers are a better team when Alfredo Morelos is at his best. For all Cholak's record in the first half of the season was very good. The manager obviously speaks very highly about Kamar Roof. Morelos is still the best striker at the club, and if he does move on, they'll do very, very well to find someone in budget who can do the job that Morelos does when he's at it. And we all know those periods can be up and down. We all know those periods can be okay for a fortnight and then completely rotten for 6 weeks. That's just Morelos. But I think when he's at his best, Rangers are a far more effective team, and hopefully it continues. If he can maintain this between now and the end of the season, it's not going to help us win the league, unfortunately, but it certainly gives us a chance of winning both cups. Yeah.
I was going to ask you about Antonio Cholak. Of course, he's had to bide his time a little bit. He's been unfortunate with injury, picked up when Michael Beale was appointed, got a bit of a cameo in midweek. But like you say, Chris, he doesn't lead the line quite like Morelos. His finishing is better. Of that, there's no doubt. But there's been a bit of debate as where Antonio Cholak fits in a Michael Beale system. I can't see him getting much game time other than off the bench. I know he has talked about potentially a Morelos and Cholak partnership. Can you see that happening at any point, especially when that front three are playing ever so well?
I would be surprised if that's something we see too often. Personally, I don't see it working. I think the Morelos-Sakala partnership with Ken just in behind like it was the other night, I think that's got some merit to it. Sakala, I know he divides opinion at times, but in terms of what he brings to the team, just in terms of energy and being a nuisance and unpredictability, playing against Sakala must be more difficult than playing against Čolak when you know roughly what you're going to get 9 times out of 10 from him. I like Big Antonio. He's a great big guy, great to deal with. His record in the first half of the season was very impressive. I still don't see him being the type of player, the type of striker that Michael Beale builds a team around about. Again, the manager spoke that day about building from the back in terms of goalkeeper. He wants one in the summer. Centre half, probably looking for one in the summer. He's got his midfield with Cantwell and Raskin. He spoke about needing a number 9, and he was asked, well, if Morelos stays, you've got Čolak, you've got Roof, do you still want another number 9? His answer was yes, because he's looking for a different type of striker. Čolak, I think, will score goals, type of guy you can throw on with 15 minutes to go, and he will go and get you something. I just don't see him being the type of guy that one of the first names on the team sheet you say, well, he's our Rangers centre forward. He's the type of guy we're then going to mould the rest of the attack round about in the same way that he can do with Morelos. So I think it's perhaps a bit harsh on him, but that's life at Rangers.
Yeah, it certainly is. Interesting comments are coming in here, Chris. I wanted to get your view on this one. It's very topical at this moment in time. Oh, Chris has just popped off there. He's come back on. Hey! A brief interlude there. Had me sweating there, Chris, but we've got you back. DWK says, we all want to sign Tillman, but do you think he wants to stay? Now, Michael Beale has been asked, I think he's been asked about this every press conference pretty much. I was asked about some clarity on Tillman yesterday. He says, I have a bit more clarity than what I can give out, obviously. It's a bit like in the transfer window when you guys are saying I am contradicting myself. I can only say so much at the moment. Those 3 guys are playing fantastically well along with Fashion, and it's hard for the other attackers because they have been relentless in terms of goals, assists, and the chances they are making. Malik Tillman, for me, Chris, has been absolutely sensational since Michael Beale has come in. I think we all seen the talent he had under Gio, but Beale seems to be getting the best out of him. For me, it's a no-brainer. You get the deal agreed with Bayern Munich, and you get the player in the door. But this comment here, do you think Malik would want to stay at Ibrox past the summer?
Right now, I don't see why not. Again, he was asked about it post-match at Hampden, I think, and didn't really give a concrete answer of yes, I would be a Ranger. But I think that's just his style. He is quite a laid-back, chilled-out big guy, and didn't really want to say too much on the situation. I think he would see Rangers as the best place for him, unless something else really exciting came up over the next few months. I think he'd be as well staying at Rangers, have another season, get another crack at Europe, potentially Champions League, and then see where his career takes him. I don't see him being in any rush to try and force moves or force the issue. Rangers are in a strong position. They've got a deal in place with Bayern Munich. They've got first dibs on him. I would be amazed if they don't try and activate that clause to make Malik a Rangers player come the summer. The only danger, I think, for Rangers is the better he plays, the more impressive he is. You may well get other clubs then on to his people, on to Bayern Munich, saying, look, by the way, we can give you more money than Rangers. We can offer you more money personally in terms of wages. We can offer you a better league, better European aspirations. That might be the only flying ointment for Rangers. But at the moment, Rangers seem relaxed about the situation. Tillman seems relaxed about the situation. And I'd be very surprised if he's not a Rangers player come the first league game of next season.
Yeah, I think it's a case of just enjoy him while we've got him, really. There's no question he's destined for bigger and better things, but the longer he's at Ibrox, I think everyone will be fair pleased with that. And it's an interesting point coming in with regards to Ross County tomorrow, Chris. Rangers back in action at Ibrox. Hugo Bear and Alan Wright get in touch with similar points. Alan Wright says, morning guys, hard picking a first 11 with so many to pick from. And Hugo Bear says, Lundstram and Kamara to drop out, Jack and Cantwell to come in. Ross County will sit deep, so patience required. Michael Beale did touch on that. He was asked about the standard and the performance levels in midweek and whether that is That's set the benchmark, Chris, and he says every game is different. Games at Ibrox, generally teams will sit more men behind the ball, and it requires a bit of patience and a different personnel at times. And he name-checked Sakala, and Cantwell is probably the best person to come in in terms of unlocking doors, as he put it. Can you see a number of changes on Saturday? Possibly Cantwell coming back in, perhaps even Yanis Hadji making another appearance?
I think Cantwell's the obvious one when you think how Ross County are going to set up and how that game is going to look and how it's going to play out. Rangers are going to have huge amounts of possession. They're going to have lots of possession in the final third. And we've all seen enough games at Ibrox over the years to know it's about unpicking that defence, getting the first goal, getting the second goal, and then by that stage the day's done. So I would be surprised if Cantwell doesn't come back in. I thought he looked bright when he came off the bench at Tynecastle. And he's only going to get better. The more games he plays, he's going to get fitter, he's going to get sharper. I think we've seen nice wee flashes of him, just what he's going to bring to the team. So I think he's the obvious one to come in. Hadji, hopefully, if they can get him on the bench again, maybe get him another 10 minutes. I know the manager's spoken about just kind of giving him as much time as possible. There's no need to rush him back through these few games. He had a couple of days off at the start of this week, having gone through a fairly rigorous programme in the build-up to the St Johnstone game. I think they just wanted to give him a wee bit of chance to unload again. So I'd imagine he'll be in the squad. I see you're then looking at guys that are pushing the number of guys that have come back, or some new players coming in. Michael does now have options. There was a spell the first few weeks when he came in. The team almost picked itself, and there was very little that he could do to change it in terms of personnel or in terms of tactical approach. I think now he's got a lot of options to mix it up, and I'm interested to see how he goes. But it should be fairly comfortable for Rangers. Another 11 games unbeaten now, 10 wins, coming off the back of a really impressive win at Tynecastle. There's no excuses not to go and have a fairly comfortable afternoon against Ross County at Ibrox.
Yeah, it's been a fantastic start. Michael Beale did give a squad update yesterday. He says he touched on Kamar Roof, and he says Kamar Roof is back outside with the team, albeit unopposed, but that is a really good sign. We might look at him for the weekend if we have to, but if not, we will push for next week. That is really pleasing news, he said. And on John Suter, he says he's in individual training at the moment. He's going great guns. He had a little bit of a reaction last week. He was very close to being in the squad, and then you're thinking he has not had a lot of fitness there. There is no need to push, as our squad is quite strong and we've got good cover. I do not want to be rushing anyone unless I need to. It was different when I brought Connor Goldson and Ben Davis back in the team. I rushed those two because I needed them. Just to finish up, there's a question come in here. It was a point we've discussed on the show before, Chris. Mark says, any more news about Sands returning to America? Michael Beale touched on this in his press conference, I think earlier on in the week, where he talked about the two loan players, obviously Tillman and Sands, and players knocking on his door like a doctor's office, looking to ask where they fit in terms of the squad. Sands, for me, Chris, I can't see him where he gets a look in. I know he was on the bench in midweek, but I think he's been pushed down the pecking order even more so now with the signing of Raskin. Does he get a look in from here until the end of the season, and can you see that loan being curtailed?
I would be surprised, as I said earlier on, I'd be surprised if Tillman is not a Rangers player come next season. I would be surprised if James Sands is a Rangers player come next season. He's perhaps been a bit unlucky during his time. He's been shunted from midfield to centre half. He's never really been able to settle into a role in the team. He's done a job when asked, been quite selfless in that regard. Ultimately, I just don't think he's good enough. I think Rangers in that position are looking for a bit more. The fact that the manager has also gone out and signed Raskin to play in that deeper midfield role, still got Kamara, still got Lundstrom, really rates Ryan Jack, and there's potential there for a new contract for him. I just don't see where James Sands fits into the plans. If you're looking at, you need two players for every position. James Sands isn't even third choice in that position now, so I would be surprised. I think they'll probably keep him until the end of the season. After that, his loan deal obviously comes to an end, and I think that'll be the end of his Rangers career.
Yeah, I agree. I think there'll be an amicable parting of the ways, and you'll head back across the pond. Okay, folks, I think that'll do us there. Thanks to everyone for interacting with the show. It's greatly appreciated. Before you go, Chris, score prediction for tomorrow.
4-0.
4-0, yeah. I think it'll be pretty routine myself. Big thanks to Chris for joining us. It's great having you on, Chris. And thanks to everyone for interacting with the show. Just a reminder, we've got that competition on where you can win 2 hospitality tickets to Rangers against Partick Thistle in the Glasgow Derby Scottish Cup 5th round tie. All you have to do is sign up to our free newsletter. You only need to give your email address. Head over to rangersreview.co.uk/newsletter to enter that draw. Okay, Joshua, I believe, will be at the game for us tomorrow, so we'll have all the usual pre-match build-up and post-match reaction for you. And then, in fact, I'm off for the next week, so Joshua and Johnny, I'd imagine, will be back on Monday. So enjoy your weekend, folks. Bye for now.